It's called Telling the Untold Stories, and it's a project that involves developing creative writing practices with women who have been survivors of domestic abuse. I made contact with a group in Nottingham, and we discussed various ways of developing the project, and we decided that doing the Writing a Short Story project would be a good idea. They promoted a course of 6 sessions to learn how to write a short story, which is very much developed from my own practice with the students at UEL. I wanted to research, how helpful just writing generally was as a skill, a kind of empowering skill for the women, without necessarily touching on areas that they might not feel ready to talk about or they might find too traumatic. In actual fact, they did all talk about their experiences of domestic abuse.
The short story writing came at a time when I was in the midst of a really horrible child arrangement court case that was very exposing, and having that to focus on really helped kind of ground me from all these anxiety triggering things.
It has given us almost an outlet to not only process our own thoughts and feelings, but to see that actually that's not normal behaviour.
To actually sit down and write my story has been very therapeutic and quite validating for me. It's been a great tool of recovery that I'm still on.
As an outcome of the course, we decided to run an event in November because that is the month of the year that there is the 16 days of activism. What I did was take the women's stories, edit them, display them, and invite other interested parties, people who'd worked in the field of domestic abuse, to come and speak about various topics that were going on. So we had someone from Southall Black Sisters, we had the 2 conveners of the Broxtowe group. When I did the first project, one of the outputs was a published piece of work with the women's stories in. We also I did like hard copy surveys about whether they'd enjoyed it, and they all spoke about it very positively. Now, I understand that isn't really enough to count as evidence, so we're working on how you establish that evidential base that somebody's moved from A to B because of your intervention. So what we're working up to is an event on July the 10th, which will be at the Source in Stratford. We are going to invite the women down to actually read their stories in the public domain. We're going to invite people from the police. We've already got certain people who would like to be involved in it. And I'm looking towards getting Newham Youth Service. One of the purposes really of these kind of projects is for younger people to see what everybody refers to now as red flags, and to understand how people become embroiled in these kind of relationships, how difficult it is for them to leave, to really think about what kind of behaviours in personal relationships are acceptable and which are not, and so forth.
If telling my story, even though it hurts sometimes and it's painful, can save one person's life, then it's totally worth doing it. Because I also suffer PTSD, anxiety and depression, for me to be able to express myself on paper gives me that freedom to actually let it all go, so I can write it down and then it's gone.
So, the piece that I've read today, I have not reread that since I wrote it, and it's almost a reminder of how far I've come.
What we are planning is to create a kind of toolkit for doing these kind of workshops around the country. Now, I know that there have been other support groups that have used creative writing, but there is no online repository or methodology or toolkit for doing it yet. And this is the later plan for the project, to develop that with Dr. Nida Redgrave and Dr. Emma Cunningham. So that's what we're working towards. We also want to publish a journal article, with what we've discovered so far.
I think having a national programme of writing and creative writing would be fantastic, because I think everybody, no matter what walks of life you're from or where you're at in your journey, should be able to do it.
I think a national programme would be extremely beneficial. I also think it will create an awareness, because quite often people don't understand what domestic abuse, domestic violence actually is, and there's too many people that are living through it without even realising that they are.
So nothing captures someone's voice like creative writing. Even if it's not done in the first person, you know, you are getting very personal, very emotional responses, really, tailored in a way that make them understandable and accessible for the general public. So that's what I always saw as being the advantage of this kind of project.